my tiny whoops grooving like a funky jam. Dip through the doorway, spin by the cab, bounce off the toaster, yeah, I meant to do it. Neighbors knocking, saying, what's that sound? It's my brush motor soul train getting down. Flying through the curtain, dancing on breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic, bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop it all. I got LED strobes and a shag rug trail. I'm looping through the lava lamp, leaving a tail. My whoop's got rhythm, my stick's got soul. I'm the pilot of the party, on a roll. TV remote's a gate, the lamps a dive. I'm flying like it's 7.5. No GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad in a soul train frame. Below, we fly that flow. Below, grab that gap. No time to nap. No time to nap. Hit that roll. Funk and control. Funk and control. Bounce that wall. Bounce that all. We fly it all. Funk it all. We fly it all. Tiny whoop love, funky and free. We fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoop's got rhythm, my stick's got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that split, it's over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop at all. Can't stop at all. Can't stop at all.
Hey, friends, my name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. The time change just kicked my ass. Oh my god, losing an hour of sleep. My watches are all wrong. I'm all confused. I'm all tired. Welcome to a bunch of live streams in a row of updating the live broadcast fleet from Vistas to 03 and 04. 03 up first. We're going to be working on the Raxus today. This is basically the Lumineer CiottiFPV QAV Cinna Freibot edition, like that old school one with 2.5-inch props. Scaled up a little bit by B-Rad down in Florida to work with the 03. This is the builds that I got all put together. My God, 2 years ago. I got that all put together. I had an ESC in there that was rated for 3S to 6S or whatever. I got it up in the air on 4S. Everything was fine. I put one 6S battery into it. Motor limited it down. Should have been totally fine. It was flying totally fine. And then fire came out of the ESC, which was at that point like the third time I believe that had happened, where a build was I'd had a micro build on 4S. The ESC was rated for up to 6S. It was totally fine on 4S, and then the extra voltage of 6S within the first few batteries just lit the ESC on fire. If you run an expensive, heavy, giant 5S ESC on a micro, I'm sorry, not 5-inch ESC on a micro, absolutely you can run 6S. But then you've got a whole bunch more money in there, a bunch more weight. Typically when we build these micros, we want to take advantage of those two things, and we use ESCs that are meant for micros. 25 amp, 30 amp, 35 amp ESCs that are on a thinner PCB that are less expensive. And on 4S, they work totally fine. Sometimes on 6S, they work totally fine. But the higher voltage of 6S is harder on some of the electronics of these ESCs. And that can cause fire to shoot out of them. And so... And with the powertrains that we're putting on these things, 1404 motors, 1505 motors, 2004 motors, they're never going to pull the current of a 2306, a 2207, a big 5-inch motor, right? And so the advantage of 6S pretty much disappears. And so it from what I've seen, 4S is really the way to go. 4S is way more durable on these. There doesn't seem to be any difference in efficiency. If there is, it's really, really slight. What I will say is that 6S opens up more motor options. With 4S, we have to buy the highest kV motors available, usually around 4,500 kV. And then, like, that's it. I wish there were more motors that were like 5,000, 5,500 kV in case we want to run smaller or lower pitch propellers. And so, yes, 6S does absolutely give you some additional motor options. But at what cost? At the cost of reliability? Not worth it for me. I thought that apparently at some point I took the ESC out of this build. So the ESC caught fire, and there was some casualties. You can kind of see here. This wire is all darkened. I think this is actually fine, but we're gonna check this out and probably swap this out. The flight controller here completely escaped. There's a little tiny burn mark here where that plug was, but other than that, the flight controller is totally fine. So there's no real fire damage up here. So this can all stay. We're obviously going to test this, but yeah, the top. Again, this is the Rebel Raxus build based on the QAV. Here's this build put together. So this has been the workhorse. Ignore the GoPro bones on there. I still haven't gotten it to fly right with that. But this has been the workhorse for me. This has been the durable live broadcast build. T-Motor 1404 4500s. I did a bunch of prop testing, and these... God damn it, who are these props made by? These props are the ones, you know which ones. They look unique. My brain is broken today. And then just regular old electronics package. This is one of my old ones, which is still on the Vista. This is it, man. This is the super strong 2.5-inch frame that just keeps on going. How did one propeller break off here? That's interesting. Oh, I know how it broke off, because I was testing with this, and it keeps wanting to fly away. Yeah, this thing has been an absolute workhorse. It's got a support out here. The 3 support setup here makes it really strong. You can hit on this, and it sends the energy right up this, right into there, right into the whole frame. This is super strong. This is what I would always use to test RF. I would basically fly this on site as far as I possibly could during testing when there's nobody out there on the course until it fail-safed, and then I would go get it to see what the absolute bitter end of my range was. Because the frame is so strong, I was never worried about it breaking when it would inevitably fail-safe. And so that's what this Raxus is. This Raxus is the just this frame, but scaled up a little bit for the 03 camera because it's significantly wider than this camera, the Vista camera. The rear end is probably the same. No, the rear end has 20 by 20 and 30 by 30 and 25 by 25 mounting, whereas the QAV Cinna just has 20 by 20 mounting for the Vista. So the Raxus does have a bunch of changes, but for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing as this guy. Actually, I'm gonna pull these. I'm gonna steal these. These are titanium T-mount screws here. I'm gonna steal them out of this. I believe this build is gonna be for sale. I believe that. Yeah, I'm gonna sell these. I have somebody that's possibly interested. We'll see. But yeah, I don't. I guess if I can get it running properly with this GoPro on here, I'll hang on to it. But I have a feeling that this build's gonna get sold. That build actually has Crossfire and ELRS in it, which is kind of interesting. This guy, at some point, I need to switch over to the dual band ELRS, but I might not do that yet because it's got ELRS 2.4 in it right now. So, one of my favorite things about these frames is what you're seeing here. You build the top and the bottom of the frame completely independent of each other, and then you just plug them into each other with the ESC to flight controller cable. It's really, really cool. This is a really, really slick way of handling a build. And so you've got your receiver on the... So this is actually the bottom plate, right? This is a pusher build. And so this is the bottom plate. So we've got... oh, I've got both ELRS and Crossfire on this as well. Look at that. Yeah. So I've got flight controller, ELRS 2.4, Crossfire 900. So yeah, I am going to need to work on this top plate because we're taking Crossfire out of here. And so yeah, you build it like this. This is super slick. You run a couple of sets of screws through here, get all your standoffs on here, and then you build the top plate, right, which actually sits like that, with your ESC, the motors, and your video system, and then you've just got 2 plugs. You've got one plug for the ESC to flight controller. You've got another plug for the video system. And it's just awesome. Like, this is so cool to have this set up like this. Like, in terms of trying to work on something, this is amazing. After I get this thing done, the next couple of builds are going to be the new school AOS frames. And on the old school AOS frame, which has been my other main live broadcast setup, serviceability kind of sucks on this. This is the old school version. It was very fragile, and working on it was very difficult. So, like, two kind of polar opposites. This did have slightly better flight characteristics because there's no support out here. There's no triangulation, but that's why it's so weak. You cannot crash this thing. You crash this thing, and the bottom piece of carbon just implodes immediately. Sometimes it takes the top piece with it. I had 2 crashes with this. The first crash broke the bottom plate. The second crash broke both the bottom and the top plate. And then I stopped crashing it forever. Because I got sick of replacing the top and bottom plates. But yeah, more efficient in the air. So this ended up doing a lot of work. I never ran it with these prop guards on here. I was just putting these on as sort of an experiment. This one just has Crossfire in it. Man, these are old school. I've been flying these for a long time. They did some proper work. What you were watching at the beginning of the live stream was the live event flying that I did initially for UCI, which is the organizing body for BMX racing that feeds into the Olympics. That was the last event before the Summer Olympics a few years ago. And then the second bit with the road bicyclists was NCL, National Cycling League, funded by a bunch of NFL guys to try to become like the NFL of cycling. Unfortunately, it only lasted a year. They did some really weird stuff with the rules that were totally different than all of the other biking races that were out. And that have been around forever, and it just didn't quite work out. But for 1 year, we did some really cool stuff. The production value of those live broadcasts was incredible, and I was super lucky to be a part of it. That was actually in Miami Beach, where I had like a 20-mile-an-hour headwind. It was incredibly challenging to fly these two little 2.5-inch rigs at 250 grams. Into that much of a headwind, banging off of buildings and palm trees, trying to chase cyclists going 35 miles an hour. That was wild. But we put on a hell of a show. So yeah, nowadays, with 03 and 04, things have moved on quite a bit. And this year is going to be amazing. I'm doing Anniston, Alabama, Sunny Crit King, as it was the first and most long-running cycling race that I've been involved with. I think this is going to be my 4th or 5th year doing it. And then I'm doing Tulsa Tough again, which is a 3-day event, which is wild. And we'll see what else there's going to be. I'm actually working on a reel with sports stuff. That's why that was playing from a Premiere window. And I'm going to put that reel out there and see if I can pick up some local sports-based flying work. We'll see. Maggie found me an in with her college that she works at video department. And so I'm going to put a reel together for them and send it over, and maybe I can do some sports work for GGC, because all the money is in sports. So, yeah, it should be interesting. McShaky was first in the chat. Chaser FPV, Levster, Spaceman Spiff, Fizz PV, Frank Dr. Nicholas, Uke, Dagul, YouTube did the thing, Unanticipated Bill, Sear, Uriel, Tony Morgan, Hendrix Freakazoid, License to Drive, Orex, Moton, Sporny, Motan says daylight savings time is some bullshit. It really is. It's really stupid that we're still doing this. Double Oze. Hypnos is in the chat. What's up, brother? Ms. I'm just going to call you Ms. because the rest of those letters confuse my cheeseburger brain. Chuck P. Schweizer. I think I got everybody. What's up, friends? Thanks for coming. CiottiFPV.com to support me. It is with your support that I can do this. Do something, click thumbs up, subscribe, tell a friend. Patreon obviously helps me out the most. It's the only way that I can keep the lights on. But yeah, everything that you guys do is super, super, super appreciated. Brandon's Baked Beans is in the chat. What's up, brother? How are you? Okay, so let me get this. I got this Premiere window all up on my business. And I got to get this out of here too. All right, if you want to talk to me and ask me questions, this is a Q&A live stream. I am going to get to work on this thing, though, as soon as I get caught up on the chat. Feel free to ask whatever you want. Double Jose says, does flying 3D require a specific type of prop or motor? Have you tried it? It doesn't require any of those things, but a 3D prop does help quite a bit. Regular propellers, like I guess we could call them two-dimensional propellers, they take a massive hit in efficiency and power when you spin them backwards. Like they're very much designed to go one direction. And so if you use a regular propeller on a 3D setup, Jesus, when you spin that prop backwards, it's not going to make a lot of thrust. And so when you go to into 3D mode, you're going to be like hammering the shit out of the throttle just to get the thing to hover. And it's going to be hard on the battery and yada, yada, yada. Motors are bidirectional, so don't have to worry about that. And I've not tried it. I am not good enough at 2D flying to want to dive into 3D flying. And so, yeah, I've never tried it, and I probably won't. There's so much for us to do in two-dimensional flying that, yeah, my focus is always going to kind of be on that. But if you want to try it, you should. I also find that when you go into 3D, it's just sort of confusing. Like, you know, the way that our stuff flies is a little bit confusing because of like the up tilt, but we fly them in a way that makes sense and in a way that like most people can watch it and be like, oh, okay, this is fun, instead of like, ooh, this is weird, what's happening? When you reverse thrust with up tilt, and you're inverted, I just find it to be wildly like confusing. I just find it like, you know, like everything is cool and everything is normal, and it's like, what? And that's why, you know, when you've been flying regular FPV for a while, it's so interesting to you. But I've always tried to fly in a way that as many people as possible can watch it and enjoy it, right? The live broadcast stuff, for example, that gets sent out on a live broadcast that gets watched by whatever, how many tens of thousands of people. It gets displayed on the Jumbotron so that all the people in the audience are going to watch it. And so doing like weird, crazy stuff, they're going to be like, it's not about my flying. It's about the action, right? Like this is when you delve into paid work, typically you delve into subject-driven flying. And the subject is the focus, not your flying. You want your flying to disappear, to be honest. You don't want, like, the biggest compliment is when somebody says like, wow, I didn't even know that like it was FPV, or I didn't even know it was a drone. That means that you flew in a way that they could just focus on the action. They could just focus on the subject, and they're invested, and with live broadcast stuff, they're invested in the story being told, right? Like, everybody there is trying to tell a story live. The story that's unfolding, in my case, is typically a cycling race. There are teams involved. There are specific riders involved. They're drafting off of one another. There's teamwork of, you know, try to pinch this other team off. There's a whole story that's unfolding. And as a camera operator, your job is not to impress people with your camera work per se. It's to help the team tell the story, right? The director is watching 20 different cameras to see which one is showing the part of the story that they want to tell. Sometimes there's going to be somebody whose bike breaks and they go into the pit, and now they're going to take the pit camera, right? They're kind of telling that there's a continuous story going on that they're doing their job. They're doing their best to explain to all the people that are watching, because storytelling is what we like to watch, right? It's why we watch movies. It's why we watch TV. And so, yeah, many years ago when I started doing subject-driven flying, that became like a big focus. It came pretty easy to me because I was a TV radio major back in college. And so, you know, I was exposed to this style or this, not style, but this ethos of camera work 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago. And you know, shooting still photography for almost 10 years, well, more than that, I guess. It's a different style. You're still storytelling, but like there's a dichotomy in still photography of like the technical side of it and being like, you know, learning about the gear and lighting and all this stuff. But then, like, once you get good enough at the technical side of it, it becomes storytelling. It becomes, how can I tell a little tale in one still frame, right? Is the lighting very moody and contrasty or dark? Is the lighting very bright and happy? Are the colors very bright and happy? Are the colors very moody? You know, is there motion blur to show that, like, something was moving, right? There's all kinds of stuff that you can do in still photography to have that one single frame, that one single moment in time, be more than just, you know, what you would take with your phone camera, right? Like, you whip your phone camera out and you freeze time for a split second, and it's usually just like a person in a place, right? Which tells a little bit of the story, right? The story is that, hey, I was here. I was in France. Look at me, in front of the Eiffel Tower, right? That tells a little bit of a story. But there's more that you can tell to that story, right? By getting better at your craft. So yeah, that's what turns me on is subject driven flying, is you know, people not even realizing that there's a drone pilot, people just looking at this amazing shot of three cyclers shoulder to shoulder, just trying to inch it out to see whose wheel comes across the start finish line first. And so yeah, 3D flying, FPV freestyle flying, the flying itself is the subject. When I fly around the house, what I'm doing is the subject. Wow, look how good he is. He just did a backflip through a hanging gate. Wow, right? Like, that's the subject. Whereas when I'm chasing these cyclists, it's, holy shit, look how strong that cyclist's legs are. Oh my God, that other cyclist sat in the draft and then whipped out and passed, right? That's what the focus is on. Not like, wow, look how close he is to the riders, right? Like, I've actually stopped getting so close to the riders because that doesn't show, like, the story that's going on. The story is typically not one individual rider. Unless it is. If there's one rider that breaks out from the pack, sometimes I will get really close to them. Usually I'll actually stay even farther away because I want to show how far out they are from the peloton. So yeah, it's very fun. Ms. Trzu says, have you tried ultralight and more powerful 2-inch builds? I have in my head combo like 1003, 14,000 kV Robo, 2-inch Pirate frames, Gems toothpick frame, 2S 2015 biblade or 2023 tri-blade, sub 30 grams possibly. I don't know if you'll ever be sub 30 grams, but you wouldn't want to be. That it becomes too light. My current setups are pretty powerful. What I've got going on right now is 1003 2-inch HD build. 1003 14,000? Nope, 10,000. 1003 10,000 kV on GemFan 2023 S's. This makes gobs of power. Really well balanced. And then the analog build, which is on 1202 and a half 11,000 kV motors, on the old school 2023s with the T-mounts. This is even more ungodly powerful. This actually needs to get motor limited down. This is too much power. And then on the 2.5 inch, this is analog, by the way, so it's even lighter. And then the 2.5 inch build that I have at the moment is also analog, and it's on 1003, 11,000 kV motors on 2512. These are 2512 propellers. And this is an absolute rocket ship too. So yeah, pretty much all my setups are extremely powerful, bordering on being too powerful, to be honest, but not quite there. Like they're about in the right spot. I do want to get that Maxx frames motor limited down a little bit. That motor prop combo would probably be better on with an HD setup, but I can't just throw $140 at every single one of these rigs for an 04 light. But yeah, these blast. They make a lot of power. They're probably like between 8 and 10 to 1 power to weight ratio, which is where 5-inch rigs kind of live. You wouldn't want to go any more powerful than this because there's not going to be a battery that you're going to be able to fit into those little frames that's going to be able to keep up with a bigger motor, right? More powerful would mean like a 1203 or a 1303. And at that point, you're going to need like a 550 mAh or even a 650 mAh battery. You're going to have a hard time fitting it on those. And then those builds are going to start to blow up. You're going to really start to break motors and frames from all that extra power and weight. Where those are is just right. It's not too heavy. It's not too much power. It's not anemic and underpowered. It's right sort of in the good range. When you go outside of that like normal range where you see most people building their stuff, it becomes a nightmare. Less so when you're underpowered. Being underpowered is always better than being overpowered. Being overpowered, the biggest problem is always durability because the motor shafts are only so strong. The propellers are only so strong. The frames are only so strong. And so when you go with like a super overpowered combo, it becomes super annoying. It becomes a build that like you're always fixing, basically, because every time you crash, it hits so hard from all that extra power and all that extra weight that it bends a motor shaft, it explodes a propeller, it breaks a frame, it breaks this, it breaks that, it hammers the batteries all up, right? You're constantly looking for like the biggest possible battery that you can fit on that build, because the really powerful motors just hammer so hard on the smaller batteries that you end up ruining the batteries from, you know, every time you go throttle, you get a full throttle, you get a low battery warning. That's too much. If you put a fresh battery onto a build and you go full throttle within the first 30 seconds and you get a low battery warning, that's a problem. Either that battery is shot or that build has a powertrain that's too powerful for that battery. You need to find a higher MAH battery to help with that. And in some cases, if it's a little itty bitty frame like these, you know, these frames are only really big enough for a 2S300 or a 2S450. The Bando versions of the sub 250G frames are big enough for a 2S550 mAh battery, but like that's it. Anything beyond that, and yeah, you're gonna just be very annoyed, very, very, very annoyed. And then when you make them too lightweight, they just don't fly right. If they're too lightweight, it's a very unbalanced flight experience, which will be drastically different than all of your other quads. So every single time you fly this one weird, super overpowered, super lightweight rig, you're going to spend a couple of batteries just adjusting to that super weird rig. And then maybe you'll get a couple good batteries in, and then you put it down and you grab something else, and then you spend a couple of batteries trying to adjust to your other rigs. And so it makes getting good kind of impossible. And it also leads to more broken stuff because like in that period that you're trying to adjust to the weird rig, you're going to be flying like shit. And there's a potential that you're going to hammer it into something and then you're going to have to stop flying it because it's going to be on fire. So yeah, in my opinion, it's a good idea to kind of stick with like the norm, you know, the bind and flies, and then like the builds that we kind of put together. Those are going to be built to fly good, to be well-rounded, to not be like this one trick pony that just does this one thing really well and everything else kind of sucks. So yeah, that's usually my advice, is to try to stick with sort of like the norm. Those are the setups that are going to help you be a better pilot, and they're going to give you a better like rounded flight experience. So yeah, there's my 2 cents. All that being said, those have a lot of power. A lot of power. Beetle Base says, I've got a 5-inch and a 65mm whoop. If you had to pick one more size to build and fly for the rest of your life, what would it be? Whoops, for sure. Because whoops, you can fly everywhere. 5-inch rigs, you can only fly in big spaces where there are deaf people or there aren't any people, right? Like, 5-inch rigs are a pain in the ass. There was a time where they were the only builds that flew good. And so we all figured out places that we could fly them. But like, you can't fly a 5-inch rig in your basement. You can't really fly it in your front yard either. That's pretty reckless and kind of shitty towards the other people that live around you. You can't fly a 5-inch rig in like a downtown area if it's not like Christmas morning, when you should be with your family. Right? Like, it's flying 5-inch builds is an absolute pain in the ass. Which is why mine don't really move very often. Like, they sit in the exact same place on top of this shelving unit behind me. Are they very fun to fly, and do they have like incredible flight characteristics? Absolutely. But they're a pain in the ass. Tiny whoops, you can fly in all the same spaces, right? You can absolutely take a tiny whoop to any spot that you were ever going to fly a 5-inch rig. But then you can fly it in a million more spots in your house, in your front yard, in your backyard, in the downtown area, inside of stores, right? Like you can fly whoops anywhere. And like, for me, you know, FPV is about flying. Like, what I want to do is fly as much as possible and in as wide of a variety of places as I possibly can. And so, yeah, whoops for life, man. Especially now that we have an incredible amount of motor and propeller options to get them like flying really, really good, right? It is no longer a situation of like, well, whoops fly like shit. That's not true at all. You can do everything with a whoop that you can do with a 5-inch rig, but you got to put in a little bit more work because you're flying them in smaller spaces typically. But I mean, you could go outside. You can go outside and do a 200-foot high power loop all day long with a tiny whoop, just like you do with your 5-inch rig, right? I think I'm dehydrated. Miz also says, thanks, I have similar builds to yours, similar frame, similar hardware, around 45 grams. I was just wondering if more power is possible. More power is always possible, but it makes the builds significantly harder to fly. This is what most people don't think about when it comes to adding power, is that we've only got this much distance, right? What's that, like an inch? We've got an inch of throttle travel to try to control full power to idle. And so when you add power, every little amount that you move that throttle stick is going to make a drastic difference. And so instead of having like nice stable hover really close to the ground, it becomes this, which looks awful, right? You want to look like a less experienced pilot than you are? Do this. Always bob up and down. Never be able to hold your elevation steady. That is the first way that I can tell a pilot that's been flying for 10 years versus 5 years versus 2 years versus 1 year versus 6 months is throttle control. And the more power you have, the more difficult throttle control is. Throttle Expo can certainly help, but flying the lowest power setup you can stand is the best way to nail your throttle control down. It's why motor limiting is such a miracle and so nice to have, because if you've got a build that's got just a little bit too much power, or if you just want to try to fly your existing builds with a little bit less power and get a little bit better throttle resolution, you can just flip into the OSD and motor limit down from 100 to 95% or 90%. And you've magically got less power, and you can see if you can stand it. And then, like, if someday you're in a scenario where you need more power, you can turn it up. You can get used to flying it with less power, enjoy better throttle resolution, enjoy your flight footage looking better, and your friends being like, damn, you're getting good. Look at you sitting a half an inch off the ground for, you know, an entire city block. And then you've got a little bit of extra power in reserve. So, yeah. Beetle Base says, "LOL, that's what I have. I'm looking for a 3D drone, a third drone." You said 3D, right? Not third. I hope I was talking about 3D because someone said 3D and not third. I hope the question was... No, it was somebody else asking that question. Okay, no, I'm good. Second guessing myself. Eweezy says, if I can get my hands on 1202.5 11,000 kV HDLRC motors on 2S 2-inch, what would you recommend? What? Oh, if I can't get my hands on. What motors would you recommend that's 1202.5? What kV should I get? Same. Those HDLRC motors aren't actually made by HDLRC. Apparently they're made by RC and Power. There aren't many companies that actually make motors. I'm pretty sure that I know that RC and Power makes motors, obviously. Brother Hobby, I'm talking about companies that make motors in-house here. RC and Power makes motors in-house. Brother Hobby makes motors in-house. I'm pretty sure that VCI makes motors in-house. Happy Model maybe makes motors in-house. I think that's kind of it, though. But there's like 15 different companies that sell motors, right? And so the brand of the motor that you buy doesn't really make that much difference because it's probably being made by someone else. And then just it's got their name stamped on it. So, yeah, with motors, if you can find the size that you want and close to the kV that you want, buy the motor that's your favorite color and you'll be totally fine. Like I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but not really, to be honest. Like because again, it's probably going to be made by somebody else anyway. So yeah, find the motor size and the kV that you're looking for, and don't worry too much about the brand. If you're doing an order on a website and it's it's not an RC and Power motor, there's that same motor by RC and Power on another website, but it's HDLRC on this website, just get the HDLRC. In this case, HDLRC, I'm pretty sure, is made by RC and Power. So yeah. Sear says, doesn't Flash Hobby make their motors in-house? They do, because Flash Hobby used to be DYS. And DYS did make their own motors. I didn't know Flash Hobby was still making motors, though. But yeah, I don't spend any time on AliExpress or Banggood anymore to know. I'm sure there's a whole bunch more motor brands that I don't see because I only shop in cheeseburger hot dog stores. Cool. I'm caught up on chat. Let's get rolling on this Raxus build on this rainy, ugly Sunday. So there's more screws stuck to the motors. This ESC and direct soldered motors setup, it was just in the bag that I had this frame in. I don't know where this came from. I think this might have been on... yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this came from, but I'm going to use it. This ESC... See if I can figure out who this ESC is made by. Anybody recognize this ESC? I'll be impressed if you do. Let me see if there's any silk screening on it. It's got pads here for if the motor lead ever breaks off. That's if the ESC to flight controller plug ever breaks off. That's really nice. I really like when they do that. It's got red grommets. It's got no silk screening on the bottom here. What do we got on the top? Nothing. Absolutely no indication of a manufacturer. That's just awesome. Why do they do that? Why wouldn't you put your own name on your effing product? This is going to be the biggest dead giveaway. So here is going to be the biggest dead giveaway. See how the PCB bumps out there twice? The two little bump outs, 1 and 2, to this plug. That's going to be the way that we somehow identify this. I kind of recognize this but I can't put my finger on it. And then this, having these pads here, this is very unique. This is how we're going to figure out what this ESC is. It doesn't really matter so much to know what it is. By the way, see how this is all glossy? This has been conformal coated from the factory. This glossiness is a conformal coating. A lot of electronics will get dipped at the factory in conformal. Yeah, this is a... well, the top is kind of matte. So the bottom is conformal coated, but it doesn't look like the top is. See how the top is not shiny? This is what not conformal coated looks like. That's weird that the bottom is and the top isn't. Usually they completely submerge it. But in this case, they didn't completely submerge it. That's kind of weird. So these motor wires are way too long, so I need to desolder all these motors, and then we're going to fit this ESC into the frame. We're going to put the motors on there, cut these leads to length, and I also need to handle this situation here. We need to swap this over to an XT30, which I've got right here. I'm probably going to take this... no, I'm not going to take this capacitor off. I'm going to leave this capacitor on because I do have room for it. I'll put this... I'll put the capacitor up in this area here. I should have plenty of room for it. Let's see, though. Let me just make sure that I'm going to have enough room for it. So if we put these two together like this, they fit together like that. And okay, it helps if I'm not holding this completely sideways like an absolute moron. Oh yeah, plenty of room. The capacitor is going to go right in here, right there where my fingernail is. So we got tons of room. There's a receiver above it right now, but that might actually go. That receiver might... No, that receiver will stay. I'm going to remove this receiver in the back. I got this receiver in the back that's butted up against this 03. So this receiver in the rear here, this one's going to go. And I'm going to replace this front receiver with a Nomad one. So that we have this guy on Nomad. But first things first, we've got to get all of these motors and this battery lead removed from this ESC. This is a silicone Workbench. Actually, before we dive into this... Huzzah! My Tiny Whoop order came in. I got another clone popper, and I'm hoping that this clone popper will work with... This is the current generation clone popper. They sell replacement forks now. I'm hoping that this current gen clone popper will work with the replacement forks. On my previous clone popper, when the fork broke, I tried to remove the fork, and it was completely impossible. I was hoping that there'd be a hole here because Tiny Whoop sells two different replacement forks. One of the forks has a hole in it, the other fork does not. And so I thought that the new generation clone popper would have like a screw or something in here that would jack into the hole, but it doesn't. But if this fork does break, I'm hoping that I'll be able to yank this fork out of this 3D printed thing and get the replacement fork and put it in there, but we'll see. Clone popper is my favorite quick, no-nonsense way of pulling propellers. The Propodial works shockingly well, but it's not quite as quick as that clone popper. I also got one of the new Mobula 704 canopies. This was actually a suggestion that I made to Happy Model after they sent me the Mobula 704 build, and unbelievably they actually did it, and it's got the little bayonet mounts in it too. So this is really cool. This is an 04 canopy that is basically the Flywoo the flywoo barrel and bayonet mount so that you can put the ND filters into it. I wonder if it'll use the flywoo ND filters or if Happy Model is going to make their own ND filters. I'll tell you in 3, 2, 1. Ha! It takes the flywoo filters. That's awesome. So previously, in order to get ND filters onto an 04 light, you had to do something like this. You had to buy the flywoo kit with these purple, red, yellow exterior parts. You slide the camera into it, and then you use the flywoo filters. And now the shitty part of doing this is that you have to 3D print. You have to 3D print a mount like this. And TPU, while it's great in crashes, it's very heavy. And it's kind of bendy. This is amazing because this is significantly lighter and it's injection molded. So like gram per gram, this is going to be a lot stronger. And so this guy is going to get pulled apart. Not pulled apart, but the canopy is going to get swapped over to this beautiful thing. And that guy will save a little bit of weight. That's awesome. I'm absolutely loving that that Happy Model made this. This is really, really cool. I would not have this on a basher. The fixed up tilt non-ND filter Happy Model 04 mount is definitely the way to go on a freestyle basher. This having like screws and having this hinge, you're going to lose up tilt and crashes, and it's just probably not going to be as strong. This is for running an ND filter and not crashing super hard. Maybe this would hold up. I don't know. You never know, but I'm not going to find out. I'm not going to crash the shit out of this thing to find out that it's a freestyle monster. If you do, please let us know, because that would be great info. So it comes with 3 little screws here. These don't look... Oh, look what they did. That's cool. I was gonna say these screws don't look long enough to go through the frame into the piece, but what they did, this is really cool actually. What they did is they made the hole in the canopy big, and then they put the brass insert into plastic, and so what happens is it actually slots in. The plastic slots in. Ooh, that's hard to get that in there. There it goes. The plastic slots all the way into that. I can't quite get it. Well, it'll happen once the screw goes through there. And so the screw is contacting the outside of the canopy while those guys are chilling in there. And so if I just put this screw in, it'll pull the plastic out. This is a great design. I really like this. There it is. And so now that's, oh my God, just one screw and it holds its up tilt really well. This is a nice design, dude. I love that. That's not the way that they've designed the old ones. This is a much better design, and that's going to hold its up tilt much better. That is very, very cool. And they give you a 3rd screw. What am I doing? This camera has autofocus now. I forget sometimes, right? And so there's the brass, and then there's plastic outside the brass connected to this moving bit, and then the screw is going to have its friction on the canopy. See that? See how the hole is bigger? And so when I put the screw into this, it's going to pull the plastic. Well, here, I'm going to do that, and then I'll take the screw back out, and you can see. It's going to pull the outer plastic bit flush. So it's going to have a good bite. Previously, what they did is the hole in the canopy, the screw just went through, and it went all the way through to the inner plastic bit, and then it just kind of held onto that, and that would like lose its, if you hit it hard enough, it would slide. Okay, so I've put the screw in. Now if I take the screw back out, you'll get to see, I'll bet, that it pulled the plastic through. Yeah, you can kind of see. That's a great design. I like that a lot. Good job, Happy Model. This is well thought out. I like this. Cool. So yeah, that 2-inch build is going to save probably, I wouldn't be surprised if that thing saves like 4 grams from all that TPU to this nice, lightweight, injection molded jib jab. Cool stuff. Love it. I do need to save this screw because this is a pretty specific screw here. Ms. Drew with a 10 PLN super chat. Thank you, dude. He says, thanks. You are very helpful as always. Keep it up. Appreciate it. Doc Holiday says, then there's that prop to pussy, lol. There it is. The hardest prop puller to use. It totally works, but it's very difficult to get it under the thing, and it drives me insane. I also got some blue motor leads. If you don't know, over on tinywhoop.com, you can get replacement JST 1.25 motor leads in a whole bunch of different colors. Red, blue, yellow, green, also white. So I snagged a couple of those. These are the red and blue 180 degree BT 2.0 battery leads that I like to put on all of my 1S stuff, like that. And so when you plug a battery in, it's got little LEDs on it that light up. And it makes finding your shit a lot easier. Right? Very, very cool. And they weigh practically nothing. They don't weigh a significant amount extra because it's just an itty bitty little PCB. Jesse very kindly included an additional green, purple ORT Micro V in 60 millimeters with a stamp, and he said do a giveaway with it and use the stamp. So we're gonna do a giveaway with this. I think on Whoop Wednesday. This is a perfect giveaway for Whoop Wednesday. So come on back this coming Wednesday at 10 o'clock. There'll be a giveaway for this purple ORT Micro V with a 60 millimeter lead on it. I got a couple of these 60 millimeter. I got 2 of these 60 millimeter Micro Vs because on these open prop builds, a lot of times the VTX UFL port is all the way up in the front, and then we're putting the antenna all the way in the back. It's not like a Tiny Whoop where we've got a central canopy, right? And so this rig actually currently has the other ORT Micro V that I bought. I jammed it up into the whip antenna holder here, and then it just runs down right there, and then it runs up and right into that UFL port. And so 60 millimeters is the exact right length for this setup. If I'd gotten 70 millimeter, I could have hung it out of this, hung it up above here. But I don't fly these things very far away. And this is really nice because it's protected. This is also out of the way of the battery. When you run a big battery, it like pushes all the way back here. And so having the antenna is a little bit annoying. You've also got like your battery cable all up in the way. At some point, I am going to order a 70 millimeter setup just to see where it lands. But yeah, the only whip antennas that are long enough for this are the whip antennas that come with the 04 light. And I have used all of those on other builds. I don't have any of those left. If you have a one of those whip antennas with the long leads on it that came with an 04 light, I'll buy it off you because I would love to have 1 or 2 extras. Let me know. Purple ORT Micro Vs, which you're going to see more of in a second. And that's it. I mainly did the order to get another clone popper so that I can more quickly pull propellers during live streams when I need to change props. Couple of stickers, as always, from Tiny Whoop. And there we go. That was my Tiny Whoop order. The much bigger order that just came in, that's very exciting, is my restock on ORT Micro Vs. They're all back. All the colors are back, damn it. Except for yellow. Nobody really wanted the yellow ones. I have one extra yellow if you're absolutely desperate. But yeah, the yellows are going to stay out of stock. They were not very popular. People started buying them just recently because none of the other colors were in stock. So if you want a yellow ORT Micro V, let me know, and on the next order of these, I will get more of the yellows. I've got blue back. I've got red back. These are all the custom length, the 46 millimeter length with the slightly extended shrink wrap to make the connection between the antenna and the head a little bit stronger. I've got more white, and I've got more black, and I've even got some purple. I couldn't get a lot of them, and I'm gonna keep a bunch of these for me because I'm a greedy pig. But there's gonna be at least 5 purples going on to the Etsy store. It looks like I got 20 blue, 20 red. Looks like I only got 10 white. That's weird. And it looks like I got 20 blacks. So, matter of fact, where the hell is... Where is it? We'll do it real quick. Listings, ORT Micro V, inventory, black, 20, white, I'm just gonna say 13, red, 20, blue, 20, and publish changes, and then I need to add purple. So if I come in here and manage variations, primary color, enter an option, purple, yep, done, apply, purple, 5, publish changes. No picture of the purple, but there you go. Now you've seen the purple. This is not mine. This does not have the extended shrimp wrap there, but that's what the purple looks like. It's a really cool royal purple. There you go. You've now officially checked out my mail bag. Hey, while you're on the Etsy store, might I suggest buying a prop bag, the coolest prop bag
In the world.
That wasn't loud enough. The coolest prop bag
In the world.
It's made of this cool, like, Tyvek-y material. It's not really Tyvek. But it's got, you can write your name down, you can look cool, like you just went to Burger King, but instead you went to Micro King. And look, you can put mad propellers in here. It holds lots of propellers. And yeah, it's this cool material. It's pretty strong. It's fun, man. Get you one. I have a whole bunch of them. I thought this thing would be super cool. I was all excited to get these. I don't know if anybody's bought one of these yet. I think I've sold like 1 or 2 of these. But yeah, I don't know, I was all excited about it. I thought it would be a big thing. Also, as a reminder, I've got a Caddx Ant Light with a blown up lens. So if you have one of these lenses for sale, I'll buy it. Or if you want to buy this because the back part without the lens is perfectly good, let me know. And if you have a Baby Ratel 2, if you have a Caddx Baby Ratel 2, I have this case that I'll send you for nothing. You gotta pay shipping though. I also have a blown up Crazy G473. The only thing blown up is the receiver. So if you put an external receiver on this, it's totally fine. Crazy G473 from Happy Model. I also have this Beta FPV ELRS receiver that's stuck on ELRS 2.5. So if you have builds that are stuck on ELRS 2.5, this is for you. Let me know. All right. Madman says that's dope. Thank you, dude. Madman's in the chat just screaming. Just all caps. Just screaming in the chat. Screaming into the ether in the chat. Melderson says, I definitely have one I can send you. I literally just got here. My timing was perfect. What? What do you have? What do you have that you can send me? One of those antennas? That would be awesome. If you think you're going to need it at some point, keep it. Because at some point I'll buy another 04 Lite and it'll come with an antenna. But if there's absolutely no chance you're going to use it, I would love it. Madman, send some pictures of his Raxus! Look at that. What do you got? 04 Lite in there? What is that? What is this brick? That's an 04 Lite, isn't it? Look at that brick of TPU. Look at this battery band thing. There you go. Look at these little TPU printed bumpers. That's interesting. Never thought about that. Where are you finding these TPU files for this thing? Very cool. Oh, they've got fucking LEDs in them. Oh my god, yo, the wiring must be ridiculous in this thing. Wait, there's no wires going. Yeah, there are wires going to them. Wow, yeah, you've got wires going everywhere for those LEDs. That's fun though. Jesus Christ. That is a night rig there. Very cool, man. I dig it. Very, very cool. Yeah, the Raxus is a really cool frame. It's based on a really cool frame, so of course it's really cool. Uriel says, just checked order, 10 days wait time. No sweat at all, man. Madman says that's dope. FizzPV says, that Micro King bag looks like a half-ounce bag for my pharmacist. It's way bigger than that. This is big. This is a big boy. This is a big bag. I have pretty long fingers. Yeah, this is big. There are probably 10 sets of props in here. 5-inch props in here. So yeah, this is big. Big bag. Menardson says, I have an 04 Lite toothpick that's almost the same specs as your 2.5, and it only needs the shorter antenna, which I have like 30 of. Okay, nice. Fair enough. Thank you, dude. Very cool. Love it. Madman turned caps off. Uriel says, that coat, is it not bad for soldering? Great question. Conformal coating was specifically designed to be able to be soldered through. And so, yeah, it's absolutely no problem whatsoever. The other forms of waterproofing are not. The reason to go with proper MG Chemicals acrylic conformal coating is that it's very easy to solder through. The thicker waterproof things that you can buy for FPV are similar to E6000, where you can't just hammer a soldering iron. I mean, I guess you could just put a soldering iron on it, but you don't want to. You want to try to pick it off and then solder. The conformal coating, you just put the soldering iron on it. You just basically ignore that it's there, and the heat will boil it off, and you're good to go. Brandon's White Bean says, bottom get conformal because of the holes in the bottom plate and landing in the damp grass. Yet again, Brandon's Baked Beans, absolute fucking genius. I would never have thought of that. Literally, I would never have even remotely considered that. What's funny about that, though, is that on this build, the ESC is upside down, so it'll be conformal coated on the top and not on the bottom, which is kind of funny. But yeah. Good call, dude. That's yep. Perfect. Love it. Beetlebase says, I have a 5-inch and a 65mm whoop. Basically, my question is, do I build a 75, 85mm whoop or 1.6 to 2.5-inch toothpick? Watch the live stream from today's Sunday, from Friday. I show and talk about 4 different 2-inch builds, and I just talk about like the pros and cons of the different styles of build, open prop versus prop guards, I also talk about the pros and cons of analog versus digital. That is going to get your mind in the place where it needs to be. Open prop stuff is very fast, but you can't bounce off of sticks and branches and whatnot. Closed prop stuff is slower, which you might like. You might want to move slower in through, you know, tighter gaps. You can bump off of shit. It's all kind of surrounding that. And then that'll get you dialed in. The reason to go up in prop size is if you want more power and more efficiency. The negative of going up in prop size is you get less throw. So if you're doing a lot of like full throttle, off throttle, go inverted, I want it to fly over the top of a tree, smaller propellers are actually going to be better, because smaller propellers are a smaller parachute. The propellers are always spinning, and so they're always disrupting the air. So the bigger the propeller, the less throw that you're going to get. If you're going really fast in one direction, you whip it around and you want it to glide backwards and look all cool, small propellers are going to do a better job of that. So that's how you decide. And cool, I'm caught up on chat. Ish. FizzPV says meant material and construction. Oh, okay. I gotcha. Not size, material and construction. Nemad says, recently had to resolder my ELRS antenna. Is it hard to cut your own? I can find the 1mm enameled magnet wire on a roll. I heard it's 31 millimeters long, seems straightforward. It's not that hard. You're never going to get it cut perfectly. Newbie Drone sells little sections of wire that are tuned for 2.4, and they're like 50 cents each. And so at some point I got like 10 of them, and I've always just kind of used those. You don't have to use that enameled magnet copper wire. You can use pretty much anything. You can even use multi-stranded wire. It's not a good idea, but you absolutely can, and it works totally fine. Yeah, it's totally doable. Next time you do a Newbie Drone order these pre-cut ones, because they're, you know, they probably had 1,000 of them made, and in theory, whoever cut them for them, they were able to say, hey, we want you to cut it 3.23 millimeters. I don't think that's the actual number, but there is a very, very, very specific length that they want to be. And so, you know, a company getting a whole bunch of them manufactured from somebody that knows what they're doing, they're going to be able to, like, you know, get them done, in theory, cut a little bit better than us with a fucking ruler. Just, right? So, yeah. But for the time being, you'll be just fine. For the time being, grab any old piece of wire and just, you know, knock it out, and it'll get you back up in the air. And then if you want to be insane about it because you want to get really good range out of that setup later, you can find one that's cut a little bit better. You know what? Another thing that you can do is, if you have old FR Sky receivers floating around and some extra antennas for them, those were all 2.4. And so you can just take those old school FR Sky antennas and cut the active element off, and that's going to be the right length. So, yeah, a couple things you can do. All right, here we go. Let's get some work done, my friends. This is a silicone work mat. You can work directly on it. I love it. It's really nice every once in a while just to drop stuff down. It's got some nice grip to it. I'm pushing this sideways, and it's like really pushing back against me. I love this mat. I've used a lot of different mats. This one is hands down my favorite. You can also accidentally touch the tip of your soldering iron to this, and it doesn't melt the living shit out of it. What you can't do, though, that I found out, is you can't get super glue all over it. Once you get super glue on it, it leaves these permanent marks, and it's like hard where these are, and it's not very grippy. It's not a big deal, but I'm now going to put on my magnified headset because I'm 44 years old, and even though I still have 20/20 vision, this shit is small. And being able to see what you're doing when you're working on these little things helps. And you do much better quality work when you were able to see what you were doing. It's the damnedest thing. So get these. These are made by Yakto Soon. You can get them on eBay or Amazon. This is one of the best things that you will get for your soldering. I guarantee you the quality of your work will look way better once you start using these. Mine certainly did. And I'd been soldering for like 5 or 6 years before I got these. So I was already pretty good. All right, I got it. So this is a syringe of flux paste. You can get these from eBay and Amazon as well. The fact that it's a paste lets you put a nice little pile of it on the pad instead of it being a liquid like the flux pen where you touch it to the pad and it just disappears because it spreads out all over the place. The flux paste, you can put a nice little blob of it and then you'll have a good chunk of flux there for when the tip of the soldering iron comes in. And this is one of the best ways to get nice shiny balls. So if you're a fan of shiny balls, get yourself a flux paste syringe. I'm going to move the work to me so that I can comfortably bring the soldering iron here like this. I could have done it the other way, but I would have had to like bend my hand all up and shit. Don't do that. Move the work to you so that you can be comfortable. If you're comfortable, you're going to shake less. If you shake less, you're going to have better quality work. Fine tipped tweezers for my left hand to grab these individual wires. Here we go. When soldering to an ESC, keep in mind that there is a big layer, it's called the ground plane in here. There's a big layer of copper that's going to spread the heat out. And so you're always going to have to be a little bit more patient soldering on an ESC. Its job is to manage heat. And so it will do just that. It's going to manage the heat from your soldering iron just like it's going to manage the heat from the FETs getting hot when you go full throttle. So I'm going to come back in and re-tin these pads because they're a little ugly. But for right now, I'm just going to get these wires removed. All right, cool. And so now there's not quite enough solder on these pads. So I'm going to come back in. That first pad ate up all the solder that I put on the tip of the iron. Now I'm just going to come back through, get the pad hot, and then just add a little bit of extra solder here. We want a little blob of solder on these pads, and we want the solder to go corner to corner on the pad. We don't want to see any of the gold of the pad. You want solder to completely cover the entire area. So you don't want to be able to see. If I was going to solder to the bottom of this ESC, I would want to completely cover all of this gold on the pad so that it looks like that. That's what you want. You don't want any of that gold showing through. You want a little mound of solder. What you don't want is a big ball of solder. This ESC looks like it has the little side, the little pockets on the side, the little croissants. I always forget the word for them. But I'm not going to use them on this build. I'm just going to use the flat pads on top. So the flat pads on top are what matters. The shape that you don't want is this. You don't want a ball like that. You want a mound like that. You don't want the edge of the pad. If this is the edge of the pad, you don't want the solder to go out like that. You want the solder to go up and over, or like that. If it's going out, and you've got another one next to it going out, castellation, that's it. Thank you, Metal Diction. If they're going out, the pad next to it is going out, and there's the potential that they bridge together. That's too much solder. You never want the edges of the pads to have solder going outwards from them. You always want it going straight up or inwards. Cool? That's the right amount of solder. Castellations. Personally, I use them whenever they are there. The theory being the more surface contact, the better. I usually do as well. But this being not a freestyle build, and just the way that this is set up and how kind of slammed the ESC sits on this, I'm not going to do it on this one. What's this little piece? Oh, that's for the battery lead, actually. That's pretty cool. Yeah, on this particular build, the wires just go straight out. And I have this ESC mounted really, really flat on the bottom plate. And like the way that this frame is designed, right? Usually you've got room on the outside of the ESC. Usually you don't have a big slab of carbon on the outside of the ESC. So if I were to send those motor wires down, I'd be sending them directly into this carbon. You know, this is an unusual build. But yeah, if you can use those castellations, those little pockets on the outside, use them. They are awesome. It's also very easy to solder to them. You just kind of put the wire in there, and you end up with a really good quality solder joint. So we're gonna do this one the other way, and let's get some flux on here. Blob, 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 blob. Okay. Clean the tip of the soldering iron. And I'm going to do what's called tinning the tip. The tip of the soldering iron is flat. The blob of solder is rounded. So if you put the flat tip of the soldering iron against the rounded ball, you're only going to get a tiny little bit of contact area. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the tip of the soldering iron and I'm going to pick up a little bit of solder. And so now the tip of the soldering iron is going to have a little ball of liquid solder on it. So that little ball of liquid solder, when we push that against the solder joint, which is a ball, it's going to wrap around. The liquid solder is going to wrap around that rounded solder ball, and it's going to transfer heat quickly. One of the biggest things in soldering is transferring heat as quickly as possible. That's how you spread less heat around the rest of the component that you're working on. So we just come in here. The smoke is the flux burning off. And now we're going to be able to get these wires removed a lot quicker. If there's not enough solder on the pad, the solder that you picked up is going to disappear pretty quickly because it's going to stick to each individual pad. And so that's what's happened here. I don't really have any solder left, so I can pick up a little bit more, and away we go. At this point, the ESC is getting hot, so like when you do a bunch in a row like this, they get easier and easier and easier because that heat spreads around everywhere, and there we go. These pads do not have same kind of deal. They don't have quite enough solder on them, so we're going to come right back on here and just add a little bit of extra solder. There we go. A little bit of fresh leaded solder here. That's all there is to it. Always check your work. Looking good, looking for solder balls. Didn't see any when I was on the pad, so we should be fine, but it's always worth it to take a quick look. All right, looking good. Up next is the battery pads. And so now these are gonna really pull temperature away from your soldering iron, so absolutely make sure you've got flux paste on there. The flux paste, basically, when you're soldering, one of your enemies is oxidation, and the oxidation happens constantly. And so the flux keeps the oxidation at bay, and it keeps everything clean. And when it's clean, it'll transfer heat quicker. So clean soldering iron tip. When we're cleaning the soldering iron tip, what we're doing is cleaning off the oxidization. And so clean all that off. Madmen, you're thinking of Shelby Vole and the gang. They did a live stream from from Castle Crash. I don't dare do remote live streams. I've tried it before. It's a nightmare. I don't have equipment that's really good enough to do it. They've got Skylink and all kinds of wild stuff. I do not have that. So yeah, I don't live stream remotely. It's just a nightmare. Christ, I have a hard time live streaming from here. All right, there's the positive lead. Here comes the ground. Ow. I'm getting the tip of the soldering iron as flat on this pad as I possibly can. That's going to help with the heat transfer. The more contact area, the more heat it can transfer. Know what I'm saying? And now same deal. I'm going to add a little bit of fresh solder to these two pads. There we go with one. Here we go with the other. The capacitor on here, I'm just going to push it down a little bit. It's looking pretty all right. Let me just make sure. There was like a big weird blob of solder on the... So this ESC has a couple of holes in it for this capacitor to hook up to, which I really do like. I love when they do that. One of the other things that I want to do here that I noticed is that we do not have enough solder on these bottom pads. So I'm going to tin the bottom of this because the battery pad area on this ESC, it's got these big pockets in it where you can drop the wire into. I actually really like it. But if you tin the bottom, you can get a little bit more strength to this kind of setup here. And so I'm just going to do that real quick. When in doubt, tin the bottom of the pad as well. If I was going to be using these castellations on the motor pads here, I would absolutely tin the bottoms of these pads, but I'm not. I'm just using the flat top part. So it'll be fine. So we're going to add some solder here, and then we're just going to move the tip of the soldering iron to get this to cover the whole bottom part of the pad. I'm also going to do the same over here on the bottoms of these through holes where the capacitor is kind of living. And so there we go. Woo! ESC's getting hot. Okay, got that. Got that. Got that. Yeah, it's looking good now. Beautiful. All right, sweet. Clean as you go. Who knows what that's from? I'll be impressed if you know what that's from. That's old school internet, old school YouTube. Clean as you go. Okay. Unknown XT60 looks pretty fine though. Nice little thin wires on it. 16. Oh, these are thin 16 gauge. The silicone must be pretty thin on them. We'll hang on to it. Madman says, what ESC is that? Good question. I don't know. I don't know where this came from. There are a couple sort of dead giveaways that I talked about, I don't know, 15 minutes ago. But yeah, I actually don't know. Euro says, I think I ruined my tip with sanding paper. Yikes. Was there blood? Madman says, we got that. Metal Anderson says, Castellations, got that. Madman says, we got to get together and fly before Sloss. Oh man, I don't fly very much. I fly like during these live streams and I test stuff in the front yard. I don't typically go out and fly very much. But if you're going out somewhere, feel free to message me and you might be able to beat me into it. But fair warning, I tend to not go out and into the world and fly very much. Chaser says AK-32 4-in-1. I doubt that it's AK-32. I think that it is My guess is that it's iFlight, but this is the dead giveaway here. Like, if I search for 10 minutes on Google Images, I'll be able to find this by this area here. This is a unique New York right here. Or if I went on a couple of the, like, GetFPV and a couple of those other sites and just looked at their ESCs, I would be able to find... If somebody wants to do it, I'll absolutely love you for it. But yeah, this little double hump thing going on right here, this is unique to this ESC. I've seen this before, and then these pads being here. This is very rare that there are pads here like this. Yeah, I think this is like a 5-year-old iFlight ESC. I could totally be wrong, but I will be able to find this. At some point in this build, I will have to find this ESC, and I will be able to. If somebody finds it before that, thank you. All right, so this guy, let's do a quick test fit, is going to live in here. These guys are going to be bent straight up. And so let's see how this drops on here. All right, so... Oh, all right, I don't need those. Apparently the ESC that I had in here before had M3 screws. Was set up for M3 screws. This one is not. That's fine. So we just need to remove these guys. These are the little M2 to M3 brass adapters that are incredibly handy. Like that. And okay, so let's try this again here. So I should have plenty of room for this capacitor. Yeah, that looks totally fine. And so let's see. Oh, yeah, now we're talking. Plenty of room here. These two plugs just kind of smash into each other, but that's fine. And then on the side, see how we're kind of slammed? If I were to send those wires down, those wires would go straight into this carbon, so I'm not. I'm going to send the wires straight out. So now we are going to get the motor wires cut down to the proper length. In theory, these motors are nice and clean. They don't have any dings or digs on them. I'll check them out once I spin them up for the first time, but it looks like these are fresh motors. They don't look beat up at all, which is great. And so let's do motor one. One of the things that I like to do is that the motor shaft will always stick out. You can kind of see it even though it's a little blurry. And so if you put the motor down where it's going to go and you push down on it, usually you can get it pretty much centered from that little bit of motor shaft sticking out. On this particular frame though, the way that the motor mounts are set up, they're set up for different screw sizes and they're just a big X. And so on this setup, I can move this motor around a little bit too much. So I'm actually going to screw this motor down. I'm going to put 2 screws into these motors to get them dropped on here so that they sit in the correct position. Because I like to get these wire runs like kind of perfect. It doesn't take much extra time to get them perfect. So we're going to put this in here. And then I think these are going to be too long. This looks like an M2 by 6 kind of scenario here. So, but I don't really need to crank these. I don't need to crank these down. I can just kind of like loosely put these in because all I'm trying to do is keep the motor located front, back, left, right. It doesn't have to be tightened down or anything like that. So let me just throw and screw in here. And then I'm going to throw and second screw in. And we should be all right. Come on, you fart bag bastard. Ah, I got rabies. Come on. There we go. All right, so if I throw these screws 90 degrees from one another in here, that should kind of lock this thing in. Why does this screw not want to party? No, it's partying now. No, it still doesn't kind of want to party. There it goes. Now it's partying. When you're putting screws in for the first time, always be careful. These are way too long. And I almost just hammered that screw into the windings. Never, with motor screws, never like really crank on them because it's very easy to push these up into the windings and you'll ruin that motor in a hurry. So these are actually too long. Before I go screwing these motors up, I am going to grab the right screws. I'm going to turn off the soldering iron. We're going to take a minute, and we're going to grab the right screws for this. It looks like DCDK says, question, wouldn't you agree that I ought to buy a Weller or a Hakko iron? I'm a big fan of Weller, mainly because my dad had a Weller soldering iron when I was growing up, and so a part of my soundtrack had this sound effect in it. Hopefully you guys can hear that. That is the very specific sound that a Weller soldering iron makes when it goes into the Weller stand. And so I got this Weller, this was like $100 for this Weller 1010. Also, it has the super old school like blue color to it, which I just find to be awesome. The Hakko iron is every bit as good, but in crazy colors. And so, and it's cheaper. So yeah, the Weller is cooler looking, and if you have some kind of nostalgia, that's certainly worth money. But realistically, the Hakko is totally fine. All that being said, Bardwell just did a soldering iron review on a really fancy new soldering iron that seemed to be awesome. So look that up. And I think there's some clones of it. It seems like it's really, really good. So maybe go that route. The Hakko and the Weller are... He's been using a Hakko forever. And it's totally fine. It gets the job done. But there are better options that hold their heat better. And when they hold their heat better, it literally makes soldering easier. So it does matter. I've learned to work with this Weller, and most of the stuff that I do is itty-bitty wires, and it holds its heat absolutely fine. If you're going to do a lot of 5-inch work, then the stuff that he's talking about is going to be really, really nice for holding its heat on those bigger wires. But yeah, I'm fine with this Weller that has all the wonderful nostalgia. But the newer options, you'll see it when you watch his video. You'll be like, "Damn!" And I mean, it is really impressive. The other thing is that those newer, nicer irons, they're much bigger. I mean, the reason why that they hold their temperature better is that they have a much bigger power supply on them. So of course they're going to be a lot bigger. My desk setup here, I've got a tiny little space that's perfect for this soldering iron, and so yeah, like this is my little setup here is absolutely perfect. I have no interest in changing it. So I'm getting a couple of M2x5 screws here. This seems to be the right length for these motor screws. I'm trying to get 12 of the same, but I am striking out at the moment. Just bear with me. iFlight makes these really cool looking screws that like kind of have a flat top, but it's kind of not. And I love using them, but I can only find 5 of them. So I'm going to have to bail and pick another head type. I've never bought these screws. I've just kept screws from every single time that I buy motors or whatever. And so I have an insane mishmash of socket head and button head screws in here, which kind of drives me nuts because I like for them to match on each build. And that can be a little bit difficult. And so you're about to see me absolutely lose my mind trying to find 12 of the same button-headed screws. This is the lightest weight of these new builds, and so I'm going to use button head screws to save an itty-bitty amount of weight here. This is also a cinematic build, it's not a freestyle build. On the freestyle builds, I use the socket-headed screws because I'm going to be crashing them a lot more, and the socket-headed screws have more metal to get shaved off during crashes. So yeah, there's that. All right, yeah, so I don't have enough of these I-flate screws, so let's put them back. And all right, let me see if I can find 12 of the same here. So yes, yeah, sorta, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I only do 3 screws per motor. Let's not do that though. One of the 16. So 13, 14, 15, and 16. I'm gonna stop doing that because if I lose a screw, it's a problem. And so it's only a little bit of extra weight to have that 4th screw per motor. And yeah, if one of these screws vibrates out, it'll be really nice to still have 3. If you run 3 screws on these motors and one of them vibrates out, you're still kind of okay. But if the second one vibrates out, you're screwed. And I would feel super unsafe flying one of these things with 2 screws in the motor instead of 3. I'd feel way better if I had 4 and I lost 1 and then I had 3 versus having 3, lose 1, and I've only got 2. That being said, I do carry a full kit of replacement screws with me at all times. So like if I did ever, just lose 1, I would just replace it. But like, what if I don't notice it, right? If I don't notice that I've lost a screw, I would much rather it be flying around with 3 in a motor than 2. These are the kind of things that you want to think about when you're doing work around human beings, because if you hit a human being, you're not going to be flying around human beings anymore. I'm actually going to have to put 3 screws in these motors because they are able to like rotate in this weird way, as I just found out. So in order to hold this motor properly centered, I'm actually going to have to put a 3rd screw in it. Kind of annoying, but not a big deal. Okay. But yeah, with 3 screws, it'll hold this motor perfectly centered here. There's a little tiny bit of movement, but close enough. Yeah. Without the 3rd screw in there, there's a lot of movement. So again, all we're doing right now is getting the motor centered so that we can cut the motor leads nice and short. Motor leads are heavy, and they have the potential to get up into the propellers. And so cut them the right length. Spend a little bit of extra time, cut them the right length. Always give yourself a little bit extra. So what I like to do is lay them flat down on the arm here, and then I'll put my index finger on them, push down, push it forward, and just keep pushing off axis like that, and then run them back, right? And then what I'm going to do is get them pretty much centered on the pads. I'm going to rock my finger forward to push it down more, and then with my other finger, I'm going to hold it up here. And see what that does? It gives me like a nice rounded bit. And so now what I can do is put a zip tie right around here, and I've got this little bit of extra wire. God forbid like the frame breaks or something pulls on these wires. If we've got a little bit of extra, that's really nice. By pushing down, you're going to make the wires run the arc that they're going to run when they're on the pads. And that's kind of nice because that makes this inner wire the shortest, the middle wire the medium length, and the outside wire the longest. And that way they sit nice and flat. The flatter they sit, the farther away they are from the propellers. So that right there is pretty damn good. We've built ourselves a little bit of extra length, but not a ton of extra length. And now what you can do is just take your flush cutters, come in here, and you're going to cut on the front of the pad, right? Because you're going to have to strip these. So cut all the way on the front of the pad. 1, 2, 3. Do not push down against the ESC. You've got components on there. So what I do is like I'll push down until I hit the ESC, and then I'll lift up a little bit and then click. Cool. And now that is the perfect wire length. A little bit extra, but not so much extra that I'm worried about it getting up into the propellers. And so now what you could do is take this motor off. It's now got the right length pads. And what you can do if you're in a hurry is hold the motors butt to butt like this. Hold them motor shaft bottom to bottom, I guess would be better. And use your fingers here to line these guys up. And then you would take the motor that's cut to length and you would just hold the wires and clip, clip, clip. That's the quick way to do it. On a cinematic build like this, I'm just going to bolt the next motor down, and I'm going to take the extra couple of minutes to get it absolutely perfect because I want these things to last as long as possible and be infinitely safe. And so I'm going to do everything the right way. Also, I find it extremely satisfying to have a build that's like gorgeous and all the wire runs are perfect, all said and done. You know, it's totally fine to take pride in your work. I know that you'll see a lot of like the really hardcore freestyle people with builds that look like they've been through a meat grinder because, you know, they're spending their time flying instead of building. You know, that's great for them. You don't, like, it's not that much extra time. And when you, like, the serviceability of a clean build versus a disgusting build is different. Like, it is easier to work on a cleaner build. It is easier to see where the problems are on a cleaner build. There are reasons to build clean. The whole, like, mangled build thing, in my opinion, is kind of like, you know, I want to be in the cool guy club. I don't really care about the cool guy club. I want my shit to work really well, fly really well, and be as serviceable as possible. And over the last 10 years, this is one of the ways that I've found to do it. All right, so pushing forward with my index finger, pushing down here to get them flattened out, and then looping them up and over. Put a finger up here, and now we've got that nice little bit of extra length. Come in here, cut it at the front of the pads, not pushing down into the ESC. That's all there is to it. All right, motors 1 and 2 are done. Let's keep going. What's in the chat? Madman says, use that cloth tape stuff. LOL. Oh, yeah, I wish. Oh, that's right. Madman, you sent me that, didn't you? I think I might have showed it on a live stream, but I wanted to show it again. Madman found this stuff. It looks like just a loop. When it was initially in the package, I was like, what the hell am I going to do with that? Like, it's too big. This shrinks. This is, when you put heat to this, it shrinks up. Really, really cool stuff. Can't obviously use it on here because the arm is closed on both sides, but yeah, really, really cool stuff. You buy it in big, long reels. If you're constantly chopping your motor wires up, this could be the best possible solution. It's kind of like the cloth tape, but as a full circle, so you don't have to deal with the adhesive. Metalretson says that ESC looks like maybe a SkyStar's KM35. I don't think it is, but you never know. Let's see. Oh my God, you're right. I've never had a SkyStar ESC. I don't typically look at the SkyStar's ESCs, but Jesus, this looks exactly like it. I'm pretty sure that's what this is. Let's take a closer look here. Dude, good find. I swear to God, I've seen this ESC before, but not as a SkyStar. So yeah, there's that little double hump. Let's take a look. Do we have... Yep, the number 2 is there. The FETs all look the same. How about the capacitors? The capacitors are laid out exactly the same. Battery pads are set up the same. There's a row of capacitors there. Yep, the bottom is identical. This is it. The top, we got a little yellow chip there. We got 1, 2, 1, 2. Yep, that's it. Good find, dude. Thank you. Cool. I've been wanting to run a SkyStar's ESC for a while, actually. And now I get to do it. This is great. I've heard really good things about SkyStar's electronics being like really electrically clean. The grommets are a different color, but who cares? The chips are all laid out in the exact same spot. Thank you, dude. Good find. SkyStar's KM35, 35 amp. So BLES, I had a feeling. So yeah, look, 3 to 6S, but ain't doing it. Not going to do 6S on this. Bad idea. I've definitely seen this ESC. There it is. I was about to say on GetFPV. Okay. Yeah. Very cool. Ooh, it's on Pyrodrone as well. It's actually in stock on Pyrodrone. Look at that. Something that's in stock. Unbelievable. So this is an example of a micro, an ESC meant for a micro. It's $50 instead of $100. It's small, it's lightweight, it's thin. Like this is a micro ESC. This is not an ESC that I think you should put 6S on. 4S for sure, maybe 5S if you can't find a motor that's a high enough kV. There are a bunch of good 5S batteries out there. GNB makes a 5S 550 mAh battery that would actually be great on a build like this, and I have a couple of them. I might try them, or I might not, because 4S is completely fine. So yeah, what happened to this light bulb? Come back on, light bulb. All right, we're back. We're back. Cool. So that's all good to go. Let's get this put back in here. We'll get these other 2 motors up. And then we just need to get the receiver situation figured out. And then we can just kind of plug everything in. And away we'll go. We will have a DJI 03 Raxus. But the clock says 5:00. And on Sundays, that means we are done. Because I gotta get a bite to eat and get dressed and get my ass to slow pour to teach some folks West Coast swing or modern swing, because that's what I do every Sunday as a part of my in my life. I like to always have some sort of volunteer work, and this has become my volunteer work. A wonderful guy named Wilder used to teach this class. Maggie found it. He taught it as couples basics dancing, and Maggie has a background of dancing. Maggie found an ad for this class 2.5 years ago or so, 3 years ago actually, and I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. Seems horrifying, but I'll give it a try because, you know, I want to be an awesome partner. And I went, and it was super fun. It was super fun to couples dance, right? It's, at its heart, it's nonverbal communication, believe it or not, right? Like, you're not going to say to your dance partner, like, hey, I'm going to turn you now. You put your body and your hand into a position that says, this is when we do this specific turn, or this is when we do this specific turn, or you move their body with your hand, arm, body to make them do a turn or a pass or whatever. Yeah, Maggie and I took Wilder's classes every Sunday at 7 o'clock. for almost an entire year. And unfortunately, a couple of weeks after the election, a couple years ago, it was all just sort of too much for Wilder, and he took his own life. And this is his full-time gig. He taught these classes at a number of different breweries around Atlanta. This was the one class that he taught up here in North Atlanta. And I'd learned enough from him that I just said, you know what, I'm not going to let his class in Lawrenceville here disappear. So I took over, figured out how to instruct a room full of people on how to do couples basics. I'd become interested in a specific kind of partner dancing called West Coast swing or modern swing. It's kind of the coolest couples dance now, and it's danced to like really cool music. It's danced to like contemporary music and hip hop and even like some electronic kind of stuff. So it's like really fun to listen to the music. You know, not for nothing, salsa and lots of the Latin dances, like they're very fun, but like I can't listen to Latin music for like 3 or 4 hours straight. I can listen to it for a half an hour and it's fine, but it's not, you know, my favorite kind of music. I like to play Latin music on drums. It's very fun to play on timbalas and congas and bongos and aux percussion. But yeah, it's not my favorite music to listen to for long periods of time. Contemporary is, you know, a lot of the music that I use in my edits now is music from our dance class. And yeah, it's been a blast. I've been teaching this class for a year and a half now, and we're having some attendance issues right now. We had a rough January, and we've been having really small class sizes, and so we're actually taking a little bit of a break for the rest of this month, and we're going to kind of relaunch the class in April. It's been a free class. We're going to relaunch it as a paid class, and we're going to take the money that we're making from admission and put it into marketing, because we've done pretty much no marketing for this class up until this point. And you know, if you want something to be more popular, you got to tell people about it. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that this isn't sort of the end of this class. You know, North Atlanta is very different than downtown. The downtown classes are doing totally fine. You know, downtown, there's lots of culture, there's lots of cool people. Up here in North Atlanta, this is like ultra suburbia. And so it's a lot of white bread people who, you know, aren't courageous enough or cultured enough or interested in anything, let alone, you know, couples dance. So we've always had much lower attendance, but like the attendance has gotten so low that like sometimes we can't hold the class. Like if we only have 3 or 4 people, we can't do a class. So yeah, today is actually the last of the free classes. I'm hoping that there's enough people here to do one more free class. Taking next weekend off because Maggie and I will be out of town. And then the weekend after that, we're just taking off to just get the marketing going and all that. There's a nonprofit that was formed after we lost Wilder to keep the company that he started, Reframed, that he was running alive as a nonprofit. And so, yeah, Sundays and you know, when we had this whole thing and they were talking about charging for the class, they were like, you know, obviously we'll be able to pay you now. And I was like, nope, no, you won't, because I won't take it, because this is my volunteer work. You know, throughout my life, it's always been important to me to have something that I volunteer my time. I love volunteering. Like that, my favorite volunteer stuff has been surrounding hobbies. And so like in New Jersey and in Charleston, I did a bunch of volunteer work with photography, which is incredibly fun, right? Like doing something for free that somebody can't afford, but you do a good job with it, right? That's pretty rad and very fun. It's interesting now being on the other side of that, somebody that flies FPV for money, seeing people fly FPV for free. I'm like, fuck you. But it's important to remember that, like, hopefully, you know, they're doing that work for people that don't have any budget whatsoever, right? And they wouldn't have any They wouldn't have done it. They don't have budget to hire me, right? So it's important to remember that. But it's sometimes I feel like a old man shaking a stick at the young kids in terms of that. But it's important to remember that that's been me before. I've been the guy that has potentially taken jobs away from working professionals by doing it for free. But yeah, this is my volunteer work that I do at 44 years of age, and it's been great, and it's super fun. And this is cool because I get better at this. Like, I get better at modern swing when I do this. So it's super fun. Gets me a little bit of exercise, meet some cool people, do something good for the world. Thanks for hanging, friends. CiottiFPV.com to support me so that I can keep doing all these things and keep testing stuff and keep showing you how to build the best rigs for whatever you're doing. This has been episode 1 of Rebuild the Raxus. Maybe we'll finish this up tomorrow night, and then it might be Cinewoop Wednesday. This Wednesday might be Cinewoop Wednesday because I need to get through these builds. I need to get all 3 of these builds up in the air, tested with a bunch of batteries through them, because the Criterium racing season starts in April in Anniston, Alabama. So I got to get this all going. I also have to get the Cosmos streamer set up and running. So I got a lot of work to do here in March. So it's going to be a bunch of Cinewoop-ish stuff. Cool? Hope you don't mind. Feel free to ask any questions, as always, in the chat, right? Don't feel like you have to ask questions about this stuff. Love you guys. Bye. Here comes some flying from God knows what. Nah, I'll tell you. This is going to be... What is this? All right, today we've got the Maxx Frames M2. Maxx Frames M2. There we go. Enjoy, friends. I'll see you tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. This is early days Maxx Frames M2. I don't know what props are on it, but 2-inch open prop, 1202.5, 11,000 kV motors. What button do I hit now?
Yeah. Out in the yard where the grass grows wild, CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy spaghetti's, fur flies, and jet wash dreams. Yeah. Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Bit fuzz and prop spin, all tangled in place. Yeah. Four-legged rebel with a rotor stir tail in the circus of the sky. They never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, dynamic duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, they zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah. Shotties on sticks, Teddy's on paws, side by side legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen over couch scale terrain, backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz fuel fury ignites the night. When pilot and pup lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise. Yeah. Yo, Shotty behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle Mike. They on the dog drone streets every day and night. Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive. Teddy push throttle up, feel the beast come alive. I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in, Teddy. Yeah, let's rip this loop, ride the roar of the wind, Teddy. Yep. Yeah, CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, diamond at duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a FPVs, fur-faced legends, legends sing it loud, yeah. Teddy Spaghetti and CiottiFPV, always proud.